I discovered कि ये दोनों मुल्कों में इतना कुछ हो सकता है कि I at times thought that the peace process was irreversible. In fact, मैं lectures दे देता था until Mumbai happened. In fact, the day Mumbai happened, I was in Delhi and we had negotiated a fantastic agreement. हम बड़े खुश थे, होटल में आए, TV खोला and there it was. तो हम बड़े, I said, oh my, it's over now.
About the famous 4-point proposal on Kashmir, Aizaz says, and I quote, "No proposal came as close to a feasible solution as the 4-point formula." One shares his assessment as well as disappointment that this formula never saw light of the day. Maybe one day this can once again it can become a basis if both sides decide to resume negotiations.
No coordination. Finance does its own job, planning does its own job, other people do their own job. In fact, every ministry wants to do its own economic thing. For example, the way the PC1 process is broken, every ministry wants to have their own project. Every politician wants to have their project. So quite frankly, our economic policy, A, does not exist.
Now, while acknowledging past mistakes, he also offers a hopeful outlook. And again, this is another facet of his character, that Ambassador Aizaz, despite the lows, is always very optimistic.
I think civil services is not a career for bright people. The average people can do that. Jaye apna usme, you know, there are so many specializations which are coming up, and he or she can serve Pakistan much better. In fact, we need those hands.
Book launching karwaye, because I think it's a very important thing to do, because when somebody is putting effort to tell us something about Pakistan, it has to be celebrated and we must learn from it.
Right.
And Aizaz Sahab ki kitab is a very, very interesting biography, autobiography.
Thank you, PIDE, and thank you, Dr. Nadeem Ul Haque sahab, and Ambassador Masood, Khalid, Amina, and all of you, some of my colleagues from ISSI. Mr. Shafqat Jalil साहब, so thank you all for coming. नदीम साहब, ये किताब जो है, मैं इस वक्त सिर्फ इसकी नरेशन तो नहीं करूँगा, but I would want to share with you and those who are watching it online, कि how was I motivated or inspired to write this book? Because that's what actually every one of us once in a while thinks about it. So, koi bhi diplomat, he goes through a life cycle, an assortment of assignments, and then touches some high point, retires, fades away. What remains are images, anecdotes recounted by the family, friends, unless, and then it's all forgotten unless it is documented. और वो जिस तरह सर आप रहे हैं चीन में, कि चीनी कहते हैं ना कि palest of ink is better than sharpest of memory. तो मुझे ये long before I retired मुझे ये ख्याल आया कि अपने memoirs लिखने चाहिए. वो हुआ ये कि मैं उस वक्त डायरेक्टर था फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज ऑफिस, बड़ा vantage point बड़ा जबरदस्त है, and Pakistan was getting nuclearized at that time. Despite American resistance, we detonated our devices. Then I also witnessed Prime Minister Vajpayee paying a bus yatra to Lahore peace process, which was then abrupted by the Kargil conflict. By the time Kargil conflict unfolded fully, I was in Washington, D.C. So I saw that from that vantage point. तो उस वक्त मुझे ये ख्याल आया कि all this is history in making. So perhaps, you know, the idea of writing a book, it took roots. फिर मैं जब न्यूयॉर्क में वापस इधर न्यूयॉर्क आ गए, वहां पे काफी देर रहे, तो वो that was turn of the century. A lot was happening. 9/11 हुआ, अफगानिस्तान पे इन्वेजन हुआ, इराक पे इन्वेजन किया अमेरिका ने, और आपने देखा वो preemptive doctrine nikla, preemptive strikes ka. And we also saw some very provocative concepts like R2P. I don't know how many of you are aware, मुझे पता है ISSI वाले जितने सब जानते हैं कि responsibility to protect was essentially a justification for intervention in other states. तो उस वक्त भी then I said I am watching. और फिर ये globalization जो थी after the demise of Soviet Union, वो globalization की phase भी euphoria भी खत्म हो रहा था. And that's where I thought maybe I should start taking notes. And फिर मैं वापस headquarters आया तो उस वक्त India-Pakistan peace process was at its peak. So I became Director General of South Asia. In that capacity, I would travel to India very extensively. Masood साहब भी उस वक्त हमारे साथ थे. तो वो I discovered कि ये दोनों मुल्कों में इतना कुछ हो सकता है कि I at times thought that the peace process was irreversible. In fact, मैं lectures दे देता था until Mumbai happened. In fact, the day Mumbai happened, I was in Delhi and we had negotiated a fantastic agreement. हम बड़े खुश थे. होटल में आए, TV खोला and there it was. तो हम बड़े, I said, oh my, it's over now. And so we, you know, I thought this all needs to be, this is a story worth telling. Years later, then of course, as Foreign Secretary, then again dealt with peace process with India. उस वक्त मोदी साहब लाहौर आए थे, that's the, लेकिन 6 दिन के बाद फिर पठानकोट हो गया. और ये सब कुछ जो है अपनी आंखों से देखा. फिर यूएस के साथ जो हमारी रिलेशनशिप है, the roller coaster, the highs and lows, वो देखे. The balancing act that Pakistan had to perform between Iran and Saudi Arabia, जो अभी तो rapprochement हो गया, लेकिन उस वक्त यमन के का serious crisis चल रहा था. And then we also witnessed Afghanistan continuing instability throughout. कम से कम मैंने अपने सारे career में देखिए, I joined the Foreign Service in 1980, or just a few months after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So ये सब कुछ जो है, it was I thought it was a story that we must document. All the wonderful places I've been to, all the you know, critical foreign policy decisions that were taken in difficult situations, the you know, the opportunities that I saw getting wasted, which had the potential of bringing prosperity to Pakistan. तो ये सब जो है वो लिखना चाहता था और फिर मैंने लिखना शुरू भी किया उसमें. तो जब मैंने ये लिखने का टाइम आया तो उस वक्त मुझे ख्याल आया कि ये you know, by that time I had retired and joined the ISSI. ये सब ISSI का crowd है जी ये. तो a wave of disillusionment struck me. And millions of books have been written and they're lying on the shelves unread practically. मैं क्यों लिख रहा हूँ ये, क्यों मैं इतनी effort करूँ, और सारी दुनिया प्रिंट स्पेस से डिजिटल स्पेस में जा रही है, मेरे क्या जरूरत है ये सारा मेहनत करने की. तो I was in 2 months. Then came the COVID. जब COVID-19 आया तो that provided me a lot more time to reflect, and I said no, it's worth an effort. So एक छोटा सा डेस्क बनाया वहां पे अपने लाहौर वाले घर में, और and I started writing, and trust me, my faithful laptop helped me so much. I prepared my first draft of 1200 pages in just 6 months. And the book was practically writing itself. Of course, I had to delete a lot because I self-censored much of what I had to say. I was not allowed by myself to reveal any information that came to me by virtue of my public office. And therefore, I had to be very careful, and that's what I have done. That doesn't mean that publicly available information सारी इसमें होगी, मेरी assessments होंगी. The book essentially is a story. In fact, these are 3 stories: mine, Pakistan's, and Pakistan's foreign policy. They dovetail each other. और जब आप पढ़ेंगे तो hopefully you will enjoy it. जब मैंने लिखना शुरू किया तो पहला chapter सर family history होता है, so that the readers know कि आप कहाँ से आ रहे हैं. And I was stuck because I didn't have my family history. और मैं कि यार हमारे पास हमारे के पुरखों में बुजुर्गों ने किसी ने कुछ लिखा होगा, मैं ढूंढता रहा, I couldn't find much. और that convinced me even more. खैर मैंने कुछ रिसर्च कर ली, लेकिन मैंने my great grandson और daughter उसको ये मिलेगा, वो पढ़ेंगे और वो देखेंगे कि उस जमाने में ये होता था. आपको अपने दादा तक का तो याद होता है, परदादा का किसी को याद नहीं होता. So it's the book which, you know, for posterity, for your children, and हमारे केस में for budding diplomats हमें ये करना चाहिए. It's a family enterprise in a way, because my son who couldn't join me today because उसकी meeting आ गई, Sameer, he's the editor. He's a prolific writer himself, And he's still very young, but he put the, gave the magic touch to it. So, agar readable hui hai, to uski wajah se hui hai. My daughter, my son-in-law, they proofread it, Maheen and Zishan, and my son, who's an architect, he prepared the cover design. And of course, I have to say, my wife inspired me. वो तो उसके बगैर फिर मैं जो है ना वो ठीक नहीं चलेगा, which is true, by the way. So I think all in all, I enjoyed writing it. If there is, to this audience and those who are online, I would say कि लिखें, nothing. आप कितनी 10 तकरीरें कर लें, आज का टीवी के टॉक शोज वगैरह, आप लिखने बैठेंगे तो आपको एकदम से ख्याल आएगा, there are 20 ways of articulating this thing. What is the best way? So आप self refinement भी आती है, and it's a debt you owe to posterity, to your own children, to your own family, but above all to the future generations. So thank you very much, sir, for providing me this opportunity. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to visit your own alma mater. I studied here, graduated from International Relations Department 1976. So it's always a pleasure to be here. And I would preface my comments on this book.
Masood Saab jo hai, he was our longest serving ambassador to China. So I think that's 7 years, and he saw all that.
But today I will talk more about him and about his book. अच्छा जी, तो मैं ये कह रहा था कि I read it first time. Then when Aizaz Sahab told me that this book launch is going to happen today, then again I did the second reading. No, not the entire thing, but all salient chapters, all key chapters I went through. And I tried to be judicious with my comments. And I thought that I will write a few things because he told you as to what motivated him to write this book. But I will also discuss a little bit about the content of the book. First of all, about the memoirs itself. Now, Aizaz Sahab is a dear colleague, and I respect him a lot. The memoirs, the autobiography, it is an extremely engaging reading. Not only for Ambassador Aizaz's peers and colleagues, but I think for all those who are interested in Pakistan's foreign policy, its ups and downs, its various dimensions, and the way it has evolved. So I think this is my point number one. It is voluminous, it's more than 600 pages. Yet I think the credit goes to Mr. Aizaz that it is an easy and absorbing reading, despite being a big book in size. And it is, one does not have to wrestle through a dictionary, because it is above the linguistic rigmarole. It's very easy, simple English. This is my comment number 2 on the quality of the book. Number 3 is the author has maintained a steady flow of thoughts while maintaining objectivity and balance in analyzing developments. Because you have to be objective, you have to be rational, and you have to keep a balance in whatever you're saying. So this is my next point. Aizaz ensures that the reader remains interested throughout while reading his life story, and this speaks of his talent as a writer. Title page, he has already told us that his son designed it. It's a beautiful page. It's also very catchy. I think while it is an extremely useful source material for students, researchers, and scholars, as it contains important information on various dimensions of our foreign policy, especially in regard to Pakistan's relations with major countries, it's almost a must reading for practitioners of diplomacy, especially those who are aspiring to join the foreign service, because it provides a unique insight into the vast domain of diplomacy and the challenges of the career. But I don't find any aspirant here but maybe I'm going to FSA tomorrow, so I'll push this point. Now, life story, of course, from the memoirs, it's very clear that Ambassador Aizaz is a very, very much a family person. And his family, his parents, his cousins, his brothers, they have contributed immensely to his grooming. And his reference in the book to his father's constant guidance and mentoring in education and career path shaped his thought process. Well, if you talk of the personality, I know him as a colleague for the last 40 years. Very dynamic, tenacious, hardworking, committed, objective, and one for whom national interest has always reigned supreme, while and even in defending sometimes the indefensible. So this is very important. Some anecdotes are very interesting as far as the career path is concerned, because I'm sure that most of you have not yet read the book. So I think you should please allow me this liberty to indulge in for a while. But I assure you that it will not be boring. His early life was in Wazirabad, Lahore, and Sargodha. And of course, over time, his thinking evolved and interest fluctuated in choosing the career path. He joins PF College Sargodha in September 1971, just 3 months before the East Pakistan crisis erupted. And I think he was there for good 7 years. Mm-hmm. And he was selected to become a GD pilot, general duty pilot. Hats off to him. And he flew Mushahid, did parachuting and other things. Would have been a budding air chief of Pakistan. But he had to quit this line of profession due to air sickness. So this is the first milestone in his career. And there is an interesting story. When he went for the interview to the PF college, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I read and I jotted it down, but I hope I'm correct. Then the principal asked him, he was testing his knowledge, how many wheels an aircraft has? And he gave a correct reply. So obviously, the principal was very impressed and he was selected. I don't know, ask him. Acha. So he writes that it was not that he had consulted some knowledge book or encyclopedia to know how many wheels an aircraft is. But his house was next to Lahore Airport. Former airport, and you used to be there very frequently. But look, that shows even at that tender age, if you are observant. You see, this is important. So I thought I'll narrate it to you. At one point, he also became greatly interested in music and also started writing these Pakistani and Indian songs, popular songs, Lata Mangeshkar and Talat Mahmood. I don't know, होता है एक एज आती है जिसमें वो romance जो है ना वो आता है सामने और maybe that was the phase, but I think your family did not sort of encourage you too much to follow that line.
नहीं, वो हुआ ये था कि ये ना छोटा था अभी 5वीं 6वीं में लिखता जाता था ना, अपनी उर्दू तेज कर रहा था, लिख के गाने। तो हमारे मामू का बेटा आया, वो हमारे एक मामू फिल्मी लाइन में भी थे, उसने कहा कि वो ये जो है, ये बच्चा जो है ना, ये फिल्मी लाइन के लिए बड़ा जबरदस्त रहेगा, तो इसको उस पे डाल दो। That's what scared him.
I think, I don't know, in retrospect maybe. You're right. Achha ji. Then after quitting PF, Aizaz thought of doing engineering and he joined UET, but soon gave it up. And then his next foray was to become a nuclear physicist. I think we have some eminent nuclear physicist here. So he joined this university.
And Dr. Goodbyes have convinced me to come in because उनका ख्याल था कि चलेंगे उधर. I was a good student, marks वगैरह तो ठीक होते थे. कि उधर चले जाएंगे MIT में चलेंगे. But then
but उसके बाद वो भी इन्होंने line छोड़ दी. And then I think by then he had appeared for the civil service examination because his father who was a civil servant himself, his father had asked him to consider joining the civil service. So, of course, this is different, phases in one's life. Although this may appear somewhat vacillating and, being unsure of what career path you will adopt. But I think this also, my analysis of Aizaz is that this also reflects his diverse personality and multiple qualities. He was already a good science student and good in mathematics. And I think those who are good in science and mathematics, they have this innate, ability to follow different lines. So good that he joined this career and of course rose to the pinnacle. In the book also, of course, Aizaz shares his training experience at the Civil Service Academy, Foreign Service Academy, as well as that of the military attachment. We had at that time, there used to be a 3 months compulsory military attachment. I also did it. My most memorable experience, way back in late 70s. Now, he was also at the Fletcher School of Diplomacy, and Aizaz mentions that he most enjoyed a discussion on Francis Fukuyama's article, The End of History.
In 1989 ki baat hai, that was the time.
And the thesis which he was articulating, Fukuyama, at the end of history, and he had his own argument. But later on, of course, he altered his own, I think, argument. And Fukuyama did that because he was also challenged by other intellectuals. But he writes in the book that was one of the most interesting part of his course. And then after that, I think when he joined the service, he had his first stint in Tehran with the ECO Secretariat. And I think that part is quite instructive in terms of broadening our understanding of this important neighbor and the regional dynamics. Posting in Iran. As a rich civilization, of course, Iran and the Persian culture has had huge impact on our part of the world. And that's an important neighbor. And I think it's that chapter that I found quite interesting. Then on his return from Tehran, Aizaz joined Foreign Secretary's office, which he rightly describes as the nerve center in the foreign ministry. And I'm sure Aizaz subsequently realized that how helpful was that stint in his later role as the foreign secretary. So his first challenge in that office, we call it the Director of Foreign Secretary's office, is basically the chef de cabinet to the foreign secretary, like you have the principal secretary to the prime minister. So in that role. So his first challenge was the Islamic Summit of 1997. Its preparatory and organizing process. And another seminal event which he has just mentioned was the nuclear test of 1998. He recalls the positive sentiment in the Muslim world when Pakistan defied the Western pressure and restored the strategic balance in South Asia. Now here is an event, an anecdote. Saudi King Fahd met our ambassador, Mr. Khalid, who's now the chairman of ISSI. At that time, he was our ambassador in Saudi Arabia. Very soon after the nuclear test. I think that was at our request. Anyway, the king was quite unwell, but he made a special gesture and received Ambassador Khalid Mahmood. And Pakistan was, of course, under flak sanctions and threats, the Western sanctions. But the king expressed solidarity with Pakistan and told Ambassador clearly that Saudi Arabia would support Pakistan more than it expects. And then Saudi Arabia soon announced free oil for Pakistan for 2 years. So you can see the reaction, the response which Pakistan's nuclear test got in the Muslim world. When I was reading this part, I thought for a while, this is strategic balance in South Asia. Pakistan had to respond back to what India did. Because as you might be knowing, Pakistan had acquired this capability way back in early 80s, but Pakistan had exercised restraint. And when India went nuclear in 1998, we thought that we should also display our prowess and capability. But I was thinking that in the current geopolitical context, we have three countries, China, India, and Pakistan, which are nuclear, but their relationship is not at all good. Think of it that if these three countries engage in a cooperative mode with each other, three of us in themselves can create a credible and a strong balance of power structure in this region, with wide-ranging implications for the region and for the world. But unfortunately, that is not the reality now. Okay, while Ambassador Aizaz has dealt extensively with Pakistan's relations with India, USA, Afghanistan, and other regional powers, his analysis of South Asia is profound. And his disappointment over the unabated tensions between India and Pakistan, of course, is shared by all those who wish to see South Asia prosper and live in peace. Referring to the Lahore process, Aizaz evaluates Vajpayee's visit, and I quote, to be an opportunity to change the course of history and make amends to the lens of mutual mistrust, unquote. I agree. Aizaz was in Washington when Kargil happened, and he shares Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's 4th July visit, and the US plainly telling our side that Kargil was not the work of Mujahideen, but an operation of our military. And he also mentions a disconnect in our system, whereby our embassy in Washington was not kept fully in the loop. And the US administration was fully supportive of India and kept Vajpayee fully informed of Pakistan-US parleys which were taking place. Indeed, Kargil was a great setback to the peace process. Aizaz has also given an insightful account of the composite dialogue with which he remained closely associated. He says that the dialogue made an uneven progress and its momentum was constantly disrupted. In my view, composite dialogue was a viable mechanism to lessen tensions between India and Pakistan. Now, about the famous 4-point proposal on Kashmir, Aizaz says, and I quote, no proposal came as close to a feasible solution as the 4-point formula, unquote. One shares his assessment as well as disappointment that this formula never saw light of the day. Maybe one day this can once again, it can become a basis if both sides decide to resume negotiations. On bilateral trade with India, Aizaz maintains that in South Asia, bilateral trade can be a CBM and potentially build peace constituency on both sides. He laments that people-to-people connectivity process could not take off due to divergent approaches of both countries. After Vajpayee's 1999 visit, another major peace initiative was, I call it peace initiative, was the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Lahore. And Aizaz gives a very interesting account of that meeting. He just happened to be there and he joined the meeting. However, that meeting also failed to break the ice, and we know where we are in terms of our relationship with India. Aizaz served in Washington twice and hence extensively dealt with Pakistan's relations with the sole superpower. He talks of the hostile environment against Pakistan when he was ambassador there, which made his job quite difficult. But that did not deter him from focusing on reaching out to Congress, media, intelligentsia, and large Pakistani diaspora to project Pakistan's point of view. About Afghanistan, I will say briefly that his review of our relations with Afghanistan is an important element of the book. Afghanistan has become, in my view, an albatross in terms of our aspirations to leverage geoeconomics for connectivity and regional cooperation. So in this chapter, he talks of Heart of Asia, India's role in Afghanistan, our own faults and flaws in Afghanistan policy, and also the Afghans' misperception and misreading or the reading of our policies. My own comments on Afghanistan are that, of course, good relations with Afghanistan are very, very important for Pakistan. And we should get out of those old notions of the so-called strategic depth, which we practiced for many, many years. On a personal note, I and Aizaz were together in New York in our UN mission. And we were there at the time of 9/11, US invasion of Iraq, and Pakistan was a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the term 2003 and 2004. And this was a momentous period of our career, my career. We both saw the machinations of big powers to retain their hegemony, impose their will, and to curb the legitimate aspirations of developing and poor countries. But despite that, I think UN provides a platform where Global South is able to raise its voice and get some relief and concessions from the mightiest from time to time. Another episode which I want to, and he has mentioned that this was the destruction of Bamiyan Buddha statues by Taliban. And Pakistan was, I think, the only one, perhaps, somehow defending that action. And I remember that I was the one who made this speech on behalf of Pakistan at the UN General Assembly, and personally, I was quite uncomfortable on that count, defending that action. Well, the book is worth reading, and it ends on an epilogue. The epilogue is a summation of how the author feels passionately about Pakistan, its successes and numerous failures. There is hope reflected in his writing that Pakistan will put its house in order and do the course correction so as to get its right place in the Committee of Nations. These sentiments are those of a patriot who, after giving his entire life to public service, wishes to see his country attain heights. And of course, we all share this hope. So thank you very much, Aizaz. You have written a wonderful book, an extremely valuable contribution, which is of historical significance for the coming generations, for your own family. And we benefit, of course, from your views because you are a regular contributor to Dawn on a variety of topics, practically every fortnight. And I read his articles regularly, and I hope you know that he has already authored another book when he was our ambassador in Holland. So I hope you will.
I'm writing now on Pakistan.
I was about to say, Acha,
no more memoirs.
but he's writing another book. So I think get going and finish this one because another is about to land in the market. So I wish you and your family very best. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to comment on my previous boss's book, as well as a mentor and someone who really has played an important role in the past 4 years in my life and my colleagues as well. Now, I think it will be unfair if I don't mention the 4-year period that we did spend with Ambassador Aizaz, because it certainly warrants recognition. And for anyone who is closely associated with the ISSI or even vaguely will know the tremendous changes that have taken place at the Institute. And, praises could never be enough for Ambassador Aizaz's contribution. Now, as I said, my association with Ambassador Aizaz commenced following his retirement from the ministry, where he joined as the Director General of the Institute of Strategic Studies. Now, throughout the 4 years that I had the privilege of working alongside him, I cannot stress enough, the truly remarkable transformation that the Institute has undergone under Ambassador Aizaz. Ambassador Aizaz's ability to envision a dynamic and relevant institution, coupled with his strategic execution, has really redefined ISSI's role in the realm of strategic studies, particularly the fact that he was able to bring about a close synergy between the Institute and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Again, something that we have not seen since the establishment of the Institute. Now, it is worth also acknowledging that this transformation has not solely been confined to the organizational realm. Ambassador Chaudhry's leadership style emphasized important facets that we tend to overlook. And I want to stress on them. One is inclusivity, mentorship, and empowerment. And these are qualities that are always, in an able leader. One of the striking aspects of his leadership, that I do want to highlight is his strong advocacy for the distribution of power. And this is not something that we're comfortable with in whatever position we hold. He championed the idea of shared responsibility and decision-making, recognizing that diverse perspectives and inputs lead to more robust outcomes. And this approach has not only empowered the team overall at ISSI, but it has nurtured a sense of ownership and accountability. Again, elements that we have not witnessed at the Institute. Now, as someone who has been a part of the ISSI for quite some time, 17 years this year, I can confidently state that the changes brought about by Ambassador Aizaz have been nothing short of revolutionary, and that is not an understatement. His tenure as the Director General has left an enduring legacy, and amongst those legacies, I would like to hope that a prominent legacy of that is his insightful book, Diplomatic Footprints. Now, Ambassador, Masood Khalid has already spoken a lot about the book, but let me just tell you that when Ambassador Aizaz first gave us the book, and Neelam, our director, is also here, of course we were grateful, but when we saw the size of the book, we were like, how on earth are we going to read such a magnum? Exactly. But to be honest with you, this magnum opus of 615 pages, by the way, divided into around 8, I believe, comprehensive sections, may in the beginning seem daunting at a first glance, and it was. But trust me, once you start reading it, you will find its contents belie any initial intimidation. And I think you can agree to that, Ambassador Khalid, since you've read it for the second time. Now, Ambassador Chaudhry's work transcends the usual realm of autobiographical narratives, instead presenting itself as a profound primer for both seasoned experts and those new to global politics, diplomacy, and security studies. Now, in a world where information is often dense and difficult to digest, where complex subjects can often be presented usually in a convoluted manner, this book stands out. Why? Because its relatability and ease of comprehension. And again, this is something that Ambassador Khalid has pointed to. And let me just mention here, I'm sure you all know Anatol Lieven. He's a very famous academic and author. I was having a conversation with him the other day regarding your book. And he said that, one of the mistakes South Asians make is that they use English that is not relatable, whereas we English use English that is relatable. And he said that one book that made sense and was relatable was your book, Ambassador Aizaz. Yep. So again, I think this, highlights the author's ability to convey intricate concepts without overwhelming the reader. And again, this is a testament to Ambassador Aizaz's skill as a communicator as well as a storyteller. We often talk about his role as a diplomat, but I think these are other facets of his personality that need to be highlighted. Now, beyond merely recounting personal and professional achievements, the book is a chronicle that casts a luminous light on Pakistan's evolution without resorting to exaggeration. Now, the author skillfully he weaves his personal and professional trajectories into a captivating narrative style, adeptly shifting between discursive and analytical modes, drawing readers into the intricate tapestry of his experiences as a fighter pilot trainee, as a diplomat, and a luminary in the think tank community. Now, this transition is seamless and designed to ensure that readers are not overwhelmed by technicalities while navigating through complex ideas and diplomatic intricacies, which is again a testament to his literary finesse. Now, what truly distinguishes Diplomatic Footprints is the author's unwavering circumspection, avoiding the pitfalls of sensationalism, even when he's recounting pivotal events, such as the ones that have been mentioned by Ambassador Khalid, Masood. And I think what I found interesting was, the accounts that he's given, particularly on the OBL episode, the Salala crisis, and of course, his insights into Afghanistan. And I think this is an area that has really brought me close to Ambassador Aizaz, because the kind of knowledge Ambassador Aizaz has is not limited to one particular area or field. Diplomacy, of course, but even when it comes to writing and even painting, I believe. From what we know, Ambassador Aizaz even painted his own house. This is just a small example of the diverse nature of his character. Now, for Pakistanis like myself, the book resonates with a call. And I think this is so important to honor the principles set forth by our nation's founding father, which is, of course, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The author rightfully invokes the visionaries' leaders' words and principles as guiding beacons for Pakistan's, of course, successive governments, emphasizing the significance of good governance, integrity, and ethical leadership, elements that we so desperately are seeking for in this time and age. Now, while acknowledging past mistakes, he also offers a hopeful outlook. And again, this is another facet of his character, that Ambassador Aizaz, despite the lows, is always very optimistic. And I think this is, again, something that we have benefited from him at the Institute. So again, acknowledging past mistakes, he offers a hopeful outlook, emphasizing the power of positive change and the potential for a bright future, where he does advocate. And I have to say, he's amongst the first that has been advocating for geo-economic centered paradigm for conflict resolution, placing regional cooperation at the heart of sustainable peace and development. This is, I think, very important. And again, I stress he was one of the first that talked about this, even though it didn't go down with certain members of the administration. Now, on a personal note, I think the book also offers insights into the complexity of identity and purpose, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most daunting challenges. And I think this is also a chapter. This is one of the first chapters. I just opened the book and I read it because it appealed to me. The personal and professional lessons and struggles that the author has gone through, particularly his battle with cancer, where he imparts the importance of resilience, human connections, and an unwavering will to overcome diversity. Again, this is something that we lack and we can learn from. So overall, Diplomatic Footprints is, and again, it is, without cliche or exaggeration, an utterly fascinating read. Whether one is a seasoned diplomat, a student, or simply an avid reader, the book offers a captivating literary experience that enriches the reader's understanding of both human nature and the complex interactions of nations on the global stage. It is an autobiography, but at the same time, it is an essential read. And I think it encapsulates a life journey intertwined with the evolution of a nation. And again, if you can't read the entire book, read chapters that, appeal to you, but do read the book, because it's not just an ordinary book. Thank you.
I think the floor is now open for questions. So let me begin. What we are noticing now, that kids want to leave Pakistan. In fact, they want to stampede out of Pakistan, not leave. Now, think about it. You've had a stupendous journey, both of you. Think about it today. Place yourself in a young person's shoes. Would you repeat your career in the Foreign Service, or would you leave Pakistan?
Well, a much greater part of my career was spent outside Pakistan. But I want to tell you that no nation, no place, no country compares to living in Pakistan. Even those of us who have risen to heights in US and Europe and elsewhere long to come back to Pakistan and retire here. And I want to tell you that the quality of life that you can enjoy in Pakistan is uncomparable. Yes, it is a pity that our governance structures have been so frivolous and careless that we are not taking care of the future of these youngsters who want to leave. They want to make their careers, but that's not a reflection of their dislike for their motherland. It's for the governance system that we have evolved. The way, and only 2 days ago, I wrote this article in the Dawn on local, grassroots democracy, how the lack of that has created a disownership, a lack of ownership of the people of Pakistan with the country, and creating a disillusionment. So I would say that the youngsters should take heart, because the lesser they are in numbers, the more space they will have to contribute to making. बाहर से कोई आके नहीं बनाएगा इस मुल्क को. अगर किसी ने बनाना है तो हम नहीं बनाने. So I think I would rather stick around.
But the question.
मेरे अब देखें सर, बात ये है कि फॉर मी और कोई जगह ही नहीं. मैंने बाकी सारी जगह देख ली. दे आर नॉट माइन. और बाकी बच्चों के लिए भी है ये कि उनके लिए भी और कोई नहीं है सर. देखिए, ये कौमों में उतार चढ़ाव आते हैं. आपको थोड़ा सा जूम आउट करके लॉन्ग टर्म पर्सपेक्टिव लेना पड़ेगा. देखें, ग्लूम सर, देखें, डूम एंड ग्लूम इज द इजीएस्ट टू से. ठीक है नहीं? वी आर ऑल लुकिंग फॉर some inspiration of hope somewhere.
The question was slightly different. My question was, place yourself.
Personally speaking, sir, I think civil services is not a career for bright people. I think the average people can do that. So जो ज़्यादा bright है वो civil service में ना है, including foreign service. वो जाए अपना उसमें, there are so many specializations which are coming up, and he or she can serve Pakistan much better. In fact, we need those hands. मेरे अपने बच्चे भी बाहर हैं और वो आते रहते हैं. One of them actually shifted from New York to Pakistan, served here for 8 years, and got sort of disenchanted with the work ethics here. He's an architect, but he told me that he'll come back because he's going there only for PhD. So the day he completes, he might. I don't know, because I don't want to stop my children from their career path, because हमने भी अपनी मर्जी से choose किया था. लेकिन अगर आप मुझे दोबारा कहेंगे तो मैं शायद नहीं आना चाहूंगा. I'd like to become a nuclear scientist अगर मैं वापस जा सकूं, because I was really good at that.
थोड़ा सा slight divergence. I think any nation, needs young people in all walks of life, and every country, every nation goes through highs and lows. So I think we are now facing this phase of lows. Hopefully things will change for better. I am an optimist that way. But I very strongly believe that we really need serious and an earnest course correction. And when I say course correction, it is multi-domain. अच्छा, मैं आपको सिर्फ 2 बातें कहना चाहता हूँ यहाँ पर. Rest, I leave it to your thinking. देखिए, मुझे मौका मिला 2 ऐसी सोसाइटीज में सर्व करने का, एक चाइना और एक साउथ कोरिया. And I saw the trend, how young people, when you know that when Deng Xiaoping started his modernization and reform process, he sent droves of young people to United States and Western universities for education. And then they came back. They were offered very lucrative packages. Right now, if you look at the policy making and the decision making structure of China, they are the people who are at the helm of affairs. I'm not talking of the political leadership. I'm talking of technocrats, those heading ministries, commissions. They are the ones. ये वो क्रॉप है जो कोई MIT से पढ़ा हुआ है, कोई स्टैनफोर्ड से पढ़ा है, numerous PhDs and all that, they are running China. Similarly, in Korea, I saw young people would go, they would come back. And ये statistics हैं इसके, मैं कोई ऐसी बात नहीं कह रहा, ये available statistics हैं, आप उठा के देख लें कि कितने चाइनीज जो हैं स्टूडेंट्स वो जाते हैं बाहर, अभी भी 5 लाख के करीब हैं यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में, मेरे ख्याल 4.5 लाख, और कितने वापस आ जाते हैं. So what I'm trying to say is the bottom line is if this society creates that enabling environment. Okay, so if we focus on economy, if we create job opportunities, expand our technological base, I think there'll be more job creation for young people. We will need people in diplomacy. We will need people in civil services. Somebody has to run this country. Civil services are the iron frame of this country, for irrespective of which government is in power. वो तो अपनी जगह पे, वो तो आप चेंज नहीं कर सकते उसको, लेकिन ये कि हमें हर जगह चाहिए. अब यंग लोग, मेरी तो जी फर्स्ट चॉइस थी फॉरेन सर्विस, एंड आई गॉट इट. आई कुड हैव जॉइन्ड एनी सर्विस इन टर्म्स ऑफ मेरिट, but I decided that I will join. And in fact, there is an episode also. Dr. Khalid Yusuf was the vice chancellor here, and I took one of her papers, and she didn't know me. Whatever I had written, maybe she got impressed, and उन्होंने मुझे बुलाया. ये उस 70s की बात में कर रहा हूँ. उन्होंने मुझे बुलाया, कहना I don't know you, what entity you are, लेकिन तुमने पेपर पर बहुत अच्छा लिखा है और तुम्हारा फाइनल सेमेस्टर, what are you going to do? मैंने कहा जी मैं तो इसके बाद तो I'm going for the examination. So कहती हैं कि अच्छा एग्जाम क्या करना है आपने, मतलब ये कि सिविल सर्विस में जाके आप यहाँ आ जाए यूनिवर्सिटी में, एंड यू ज्वाइन एज, वो जो भी होते थे उससे रिसर्च एसोसिएट ग्रेड 17 कह रहा हूँ. मैंने कहा अच्छा जी मैं सोचूंगा, my mind. So anyway, this is what happens. So my point is कि if you give me the choice, I will probably again opt for it. But जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, because I think it is a service which gives you an exposure which probably you would not get in any other occupational group, in terms of your interaction, in terms of your linkages, really. And it depends, wherever you are you can do self-learning, but it allows you to do a lot of self-learning.
I think this last point, I think Masood Khalid sir is spot on, क्योंकि जो opportunities आपको foreign service देती है of learning and refining your personality, कोई और service नहीं देती है. तो उस लिहाज से तो आज इसे यूनिक है. लेकिन जो करदार साहब का जो था नुक्ता वो ये था कि भाई हमें उम्मीद की किरण नजर नहीं आ रही. सर ये देखें, कुछ किए बगैर, चेंज किए बगैर, जो पैराडाइम शिफ्ट किए बगैर तो नहीं होगा. पूरी दुनिया में मुल्कों ने तरक्की की है जब उनके नेबर्स के साथ ताल्लुकात अच्छे होते हैं. अब ये रियलिटी कब हमारे लीडरशिप रिकग्नाइज करेगी और कब तब होगा. सो वी गॉट टू, आई मीन इट्स ए प्रोसेस. अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी वर अनलकी, वरना 60s में यही पाकिस्तान डार्लिंग ऑफ द वर्ल्ड था. तो देयर इज नो रीजन व्हाई यू कांट डू इट अगेन. So even in the most depression-prone circumstances, I like to maintain some kind of degree of optimism that things might change one day. Sir.
कि ये बताएं your own experience. Of course, the US in that particular moment, जैसे कि कह रहे हैं. Just explain to us what you see as a future relationship with the US in particular, given what Biden thinks of us. will be a and particularly after Afghanistan and the kind of jubilations we saw at the official level on the exit.
Sir, Pakistan's relationship with the United States, नहीं सर, ये ट्रांजैक्शनल रहेगी, है और रहेगी, और हमें इससे रिकंसाइल कर लेना चाहिए. हमें ये ब्रॉड बेस ढूंढने की जरूरत नहीं है. इंडिया इज दी अंडर दी सर्कमस्टांसेस ए पार्टनर ऑफ चॉइस फॉर द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स. हमारे लिए वो ट्रांजैक्शनल भी बहुत है. उसकी वजह यह है कि ये गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नमेंट रिलेशनशिप सिक्योरिटाइज हो चुकी है और वो ट्रांजैक्शनल बन गई, जबकि पीपल टू पीपल रिलेशनशिप जो है ना वो स्टडी रही है हमेशा से, चाहे वो एजुकेशन हो, चाहे पब्लिक हेल्थ हो, चाहे IT हो, चाहे ट्रेड हो. आई थिंक सर पेंटागन का उसमें रोल ज्यादा रहा है, बिकॉज हमारे यहाँ सिक्योरिटी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट का रोल ज्यादा रहा है. तो इस वजह से वो रिलेशनशिप ज्यादा उस, प्लस ये कि जी सर यूएस के जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं ना सर, वो अभी भी सिक्योरिटी रिलेटेड है। पहले वो कम्युनिज्म को फाइट करना था, अब चाइना को कंटेन करना है। तो इसलिए भी उनका हमारे से एक्सपेक्टेशन वही रहेगी, लेकिन हम वो रोल अब प्ले नहीं कर सकते जो हमने पहले किया था अगेंस्ट सोवियत यूनियन। अब चाइना का फैक्टर आ गया, एंड देयरफॉर पाकिस्तान को ये चाहिए कि यूएस के साथ उन्हीं एरियाज में काम करते रहे जिसमें पीपल टू पीपल लिंकेजेस मौजूद हैं, और वो करते हैं। आई थिंक द गवर्नमेंट शुड नॉट इंटरवीन सो मच, ना इसको सिक्योरिटाइज करें इस रिलेशनशिप को, और ना ही ज्यादा ख्वाहिश जाहिर करें कि उनकी तरफ से फोन नहीं आया तो नहीं आया। आप अपनी जो रिलेशनशिप है उसके रास्ते ना रोकें। ये इवन इन दी वर्स्ट ऑफ टाइम्स हमारे लोगों के कांटेक्ट उनसे कभी कम नहीं हुए। आज भी यूएस ट्रेडिंग पार्टनर सबसे बड़ा है, हमेशा से रहा है, तो क्यों है? और आज भी अगर आपके यहाँ कोई बड़ी सी सिचुएशन चेंज हो जाए, यूएस कंपनीज विल बी द फर्स्ट वन टू कम एंड इन्वेस्ट। तो इस
ऑनलाइन एक सवाल लेंगे ऑनलाइन।
Assalamu alaikum, sir. It is always a pleasure to interact with you, to meet you. And sir, I have read your book extensively, used my highlighter pens quite liberally on it. It is like a modern work of art now, my book. Sir, one common thread that I could discern during the book was our balancing act that we have always been performing. For example, I was reading your chapter, Diplomacy on Trial, when Saudis tried to pull us into the Yemeni quagmire, and we barely dodged the bullet. Sir, my question is that now, aren't we on the verge of a new epoch when, due to Chinese intervention, Iran and Saudi Arabia are coming closer, warming up? So isn't it a new era in which Pakistan can play a role of constructive regionalism? Because, sir, I have also been posted to issue secretariat, and many of its programs are still pending because of course, the role that Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey have to play.
ये मुकीद आप ठीक कह रहे हैं. I think this is a profound development which can have good tidings for Pakistan as well. ये Saudi Iran rapprochement by China is a good news. लेकिन ये बैलेंसिंग एक्ट तो आपके कंटिन्यू करेंगे, क्योंकि ये तो नहीं होता कि सारी नेशंस जो हैं वो आपस में एक जैसी हो जाएंगी, और पाकिस्तान को चाइना और यूएस के दरमियान में बैलेंसिंग एक्ट करना पड़ेगा, ईरान और सऊदी अरेबिया के दरमियान भी करना पड़ेगा, और भी कई जगहों पर आपको करना पड़ेगा. और डिप्लोमेसी है ही यही. इससे आपने अपने इंटरेस्ट वॉच करने हैं, आपने अपना नेशनल इंटरेस्ट देखना है और उसके मुताबिक रिलेशनशिप एस्टेब्लिश करनी है. ये ईरान इज ए नेबर with deep cultural imprint. Saudi Arabia is a good friend, has always been. There is no way that Pakistan can make a choice. और अब जब उनका रिप्रोचमा हुआ है, और मैं ये समझता हूँ कि चाइना को ऐसे ही नहीं मीडिएटर उन्होंने चूज किया था. देयर वाज अ वेरी सॉलिड रीजन फॉर दैट. और मुझे लगता है कि अब जो इकोनॉमिक बोनेंजा आ सकता है, पाकिस्तान तो राइट इन द मिडल है. सिर्फ बात यह है कि हमें पढ़ना पड़ेगा, मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. हमें तो देखना पड़ेगा कि चाइना, सऊदी अरेबिया का इकोनॉमिक विजन 2030 है क्या, और उसमें से क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज हमें निकल सकती हैं. इसी तरीके से अगर आप ईरान के साथ देखें तो वी शेयर ए बॉर्डर. देयर वाज सो मच वी कुड हैव डन. आई मीन सारी दुनिया ने सैंक्शंस अवॉइड करके ईरान से फायदा उठाया. हम तो नेबर्स थे. तो ये सिर्फ आपने, जो मुझे एक अच्छी चीज लगी है पाकिस्तान की, वो ये है कि लास्ट ईयर एक नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी आई है. मुझे पता है उस पर बहुत लोग खफा हैं कि भाई इसमें ये नहीं है वो नहीं है, बट आई थिंक इट वाज वन सीरियस अटेम्प्ट जिसमें पहली बार नेशनल पर्पस दिया कि दी सेफ्टी, सिक्योरिटी, dignity and prosperity of the citizens of Pakistan is the national purpose for Pakistan. I think there's nothing better than this. कोई ideology नहीं, कोई कुछ नहीं, citizen centric है. तो ये जो opportunities अभी हमें निकलने वालेंगी, अभी उसी सूरत में निकलेंगी कि आप अपना raison d'être ये बना दें कि socio economic welfare of the people of Pakistan, ये इसका पर्पस होना चाहिए पाकिस्तान को, पाकिस्तान की सारी गवर्नेंस का.
Thank you, sir. One more question, sir. Sir, now the chapter that I liked the most in your book was about your sabbatical at Fletcher School of Diplomacy. Sir, the thing is that now the academic learning is increasingly taking a backseat here at Foreign Office. I mean, there is no support from the government of Pakistan, and there is no support from the ministry. I am going to Oxford this year on evening, but I am totally on my own. I'm going to, pay my expenses and everything. So I'm taking an opportunity that you are here, Ambassador Masood is also here. Is it possible that institutions like ISSI could play a role in, they could do something on keeping the officers of the Foreign Service engaged in academic discussions? Because when we secure scholarships and go to study abroad, we are actually missing out the career progression. As we, if we are posted at the mission abroad, we are earning better, we are living better. So it is quite a no-win situation for us.
यार
So-
नहीं, ये सही आप कह रहे हैं मकीद के सबैटिकल तो वंस इन ए वाइल हर एक को करनी है. अब सर्कमस्टांसेस हैं, कुछ को स्कॉलरशिप मिल जाता है, कुछ को नहीं मिलता है, लेकिन आपकी अपनी अर्ज है तो आपने पर्सनल रिफाइनमेंट करनी है अपनी. और मेरे ख्याल में अगर आप इस वक्त ऑक्सफोर्ड जा रहे हैं तो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, और अगर ये आप पैसे अपनी जेब से भी खर्च कर रहे हैं तो इट्स एन इन्वेस्टमेंट यू आर मेकिंग इन योर ओन सेल्फ. और अगर पाकिस्तान को कल को इसका फायदा होता है तो मैं समझूंगा कि ये बोनस है. और हम सबको बेसिकली देखें, गवर्नमेंट देयर इज अ पॉइंट अप टू विच गवर्नमेंट्स कैन डू थिंग्स. हमें कई बार खुद डिसीजंस लेने पड़ते हैं, और मेरे ख्याल में माय एडवाइस टू ऑल माय यंगर कोलीग्स वुड बी कि नेवर गिव अप. और यू डोंट हैव टू गो टू ऑक्सफोर्ड और फ्लैचर और कोलंबिया टू रिफाइन योरसेल्फ. आजकल तो मतलब इतनी वेल कनेक्टेड दुनिया है, आप लिखने का काम शुरू कर दें और आप देखेंगे कि यू विल स्टार्ट गेटिंग रिकग्निशन एंड देयर विल बी स्पॉन्सर्स दैट विल कम अलोंग. सो बट take the first step yourself, and I'm glad that you have done that. Thank you.
Sir, about India, you analyzed it a lot. I'm sorry, I haven't read your book, so maybe it's already in the book. I think our relationship with India is not only to be seen in economic terms or in India, America, and so on. India is in the midst of a process of rewriting its own history. They want to wipe out the negative aspects of the last 1,000 years. So we've got to. And a very interesting book came out from Oxford, mentioned Oxford, Mushahid did, Continent of Search with Niraj Chaudhary, and how the Indians are trying to, do all these things. Toynbee said about 100 years ago, that, and this applies very much to our region, that when we have two powers competing for influence or attention, and one is bigger and more powerful than the others, and the weaker one has only one choice: the Herodian way or the way of the zealot. This is what Herod did when the Romans took over the old Palestine, that area. And this is very applicable to us. And with India will do everything in itself, possible to undermine us. They have a different viewpoint of the world anyway. It's not just Modi, it goes beyond that. Secondly, Afghanistan you mentioned. Afghanistan, if I had Afghanistan, I'd never let it go. It has 50%, it's the Saudi Arabia of lithium. It has 50% of the world's lithium resources. And this is a country which the more it stays unstable, the more and this is what the Chinese have gone in and pumping out these areas. Secondly, sir, I just want to ask a question about the nuclear program. You had to deal with it and have had to answer questions. Did Multan conference actually, was it Bhutto who said we're going to go for the bomb? Did Bhutto declare in Multan in 1972 that we were going to build the bomb?
Yeah, I think he indicated and alluded to that. There are, it is well documented now.
It's well documented.
We'll eat grass, but we'll make some.
Eat grass was.
Yes, 1974 के बाद हुआ जब वो इंडिया के.
72 में जो Multan conference I was there.
अच्छा.
The reasons were entirely different.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And there was a bit of a revolt within the PAC, which is another story. So some people went to Quetta. I was one of them, 7, 8 people, 2 younger people, the rest were all directors. And there we stayed for 3 days at the Quetta club. Salam was there, met and other people. And the idea was to solve the problems of the PAC. But that's another matter. But then we moved to Multan, and Bhutto never used the word nuclear. Never used the word at all in 1972. Khalid Hassan ने जो
तो 72 में क्यों करेंगे वो यूज? क्योंकि 1974 में जब इंडिया का एक्सप्लोजन, जैसे वो पीसफुल बुद्धा कहते हैं या स्माइलिंग बुद्धा कहते हैं, तो उसके बाद ये क्वेश्चन उठा था कि पाकिस्तान कैसे करे.
वो इसलिए कि जी खालिद हसन इज सपोज्ड टू हैव सेड कि मुल्तान कॉन्फ्रेंस उन्होंने कहा था जी हम
नहीं, खालिद इस तरह तो पीपल कैन स्पेकुलेट, बट जो डॉक्यूमेंटेड है, एंड आई थिंक ब्रिगेडियर फिरोज हैज गिवन अ फुल डिटेल ऑफ दैट.
He is also mistaken. And when he launched his books, I pointed out some mistakes. And he said, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't discuss, we didn't know about it. So the question is this. In 1975, when we started to go for the nuclear bomb, it was not a rational decision in the sense that well thought out, we are going to do this and do this and do that.
we would never have embarked on this route. We are a lazy people. If you had been kept giving the spare parts and others, for example, the Karachi nuclear power reactor, we had to shut it down for a little while. And the spare parts and fuel was denied to us, but was never denied to India. They kept getting everything in spite of not being under IISSI exam. So then, of course,
सर ये जितनी डेवलपमेंट्स है ना ये जियोपॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में होती हैं. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had already started shifting Pakistan's priorities away from the Ayub government's pro-US policies. Or wo, I think it was very clear at that time to the US and to the West as a whole that Bhutto Saab leans more towards China and left of the center and Muslim world and developing world and so forth. इसलिए वो जितनी help आ रही थी आपको वो उस वक्त वही. लेकिन the broader point I would make in all this is कि पाकिस्तान को अगर पाकिस्तान की इस वक्त न्यूक्लियर कैपेबिलिटी ना होती तो हमारे लिए काफी मुश्किलात कर जाए. स्पेशली इस किस्म की गवर्नमेंट इस वक्त इंडिया में आगे हुई है जहां पे उनका जो नया नॉर्मल है वो ये है कि अगर अमेरिका सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स कर सकता है और हम भी कर सकते हैं, और उन्होंने करके भी फरवरी 2019 में उन्होंने कोशिश भी की और एक्चुअली करके भी दिखाया. और आए दिन वो धमकी लगाते थे कि हम जीबी भी ले लेंगे और एजे की भी ले लेंगे. तो आपके पास ये कैपेबिलिटी है विच वाज सॉर्ट ऑफ इक्वलाइजर इन द सेंस कि आपके पास कन्वेंशनल एसिमेट्री बहुत ज्यादा थी. That said, I believe the future of Pakistan lies in a peaceful rapprochement with all neighbors of Pakistan. All. मैं कहता हूँ सबके साथ हमें करना पड़ेगा. अगर आप ये नहीं करेंगे तो ये पाकिस्तान के लिए मुश्किलात होंगी. हमारा अगर ईस्ट भी अनसेटल्ड बॉर्डर हो और वेस्ट भी अनसेटल्ड बॉर्डर हो तो ये कोई बहुत अच्छी सिचुएशन नहीं है. एंड द पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान विल बी एंटाइटल्ड टू आस्क भाई किस किस्म की खारजा पॉलिसी है. सो ये मेरा ये ख्याल है कि अब इसकी रिकग्निशन आहिस्ता आहिस्ता बढ़ रही है इस बात की. और ये जो नए यंगस्टर्स आ रहे हैं ये रेज कर रहे हैं ये पॉइंट्स को कि भाई आपको जो आप कह रहे थे ना शिफ्ट करने की जरूरत है पैराडाइम, कि हर चीज को सिक्योरिटी के लेंस से नहीं देखना, आपने इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी के लेंस से देखना है. इसीलिए जियो इकोनॉमिक्स की टर्म्स भी आई.
So one last question, small one. The biggest event happening in Pakistan right now is not elections, but something else, and that is a special investment facility. Now, this is going to be a game changer politically and economically, and I'd like your comments, please, on this.
जी सर, ये मेरा एरिया ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज तो नहीं है, लेकिन आई बिलीव के जो हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स हैं या डोनर्स हैं जो बाहर से ला के इन्वेस्ट करना, दे नीड सिक्योरिटी ऑफ देयर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स एंड दे आर ऑलवेज लुकिंग फॉर समबडी व्हिच इज मोर ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एंड विल प्रोवाइड दैट सिक्योरिटी. इसलिए वो उस तरफ वो जा रहा है, बट दिस इज नॉट माय एरिया ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज. जी
Best Aizaz, a wonderful book. Definitely I will read. But I have two questions. The first, in the modern times, like what defines balance of power? Is it a strong economy or is it a strong military presence? The second question is also related. I see, like, do we need a change of mindset? When I look at the country, it looks like a security state. If you travel in Islamabad, there are gates everywhere, you know. They can just close the city all the time. If we see a foreign delegation, we just close the city for days, for 2 days, 2 working days in the capital city. So it is security mindset. I think we need to change from security mindset to a commercial mindset if we need economic prosperity. So how is it possible? Thank you.
देखें, ये बैलेंस ऑफ पावर की थ्योरीज हैं, लेकिन नेशनल पावर वाज डिफाइंड नैरोली इन द पास्ट. नो मोर. पहले तो था मिलिट्री प्रोविस है, अगर आप तगड़े हैं तो आप सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. नो, नॉट एनी मोर. अब तो सोवियत यूनियन की डिमाइस के बाद से बड़ा क्लियर हो गया था कि आपको, और अब के दौर में, इसलिए तो पिछले साल जो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी उन्होंने कहा द नेशनल सिक्योरिटी ऑफ द कंट्री रेस्ट ऑन द ट्राइपॉड ऑफ ट्रेडिशनल डिफेंस, इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी एंड सोशल सिक्योरिटी एंड ह्यूमन सिक्योरिटी, सॉरी, विद प्राइमेसी टू इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी. क्योंकि अगर आपके पास अगर कोई इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रेंथ है, मेरा तो नहीं फोन, तो इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रेंथ अगर आपके पास है तो आपकी बात सही है. तो मैं तो खुद इसको आर्गू कर रहा हूं कि ये सिक्योरिटी सेंट्रिक स्टेट नहीं होनी चाहिए, सिटीजन सेंट्रिक होनी चाहिए. सोशियो इकोनॉमिक वेलफेयर ऑफ द सिटीजन सिक्योर होंगे तो एलिट भी सिक्योर हो जाएंगे. वरना अदरवाइज जितना मर्जी आप उनको सिक्योरिटी गार्ड्स दे दें वो सिक्योर नहीं होंगे। तो ये मैं आपकी बात, और आप यंगर जनरेशन को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, यही सोच आने की जरूरत है अब पाकिस्तान में, और आ रही है आहिस्ता आहिस्ता। आई थिंक द पॉइंट इज सेटलिंग देयर।
After 5th August 2019, when the Kashmir, Article 370 was removed. So what happened that Pakistan made two actions. One is to lower down the status of the High Commission in India, another the stoppage of trade with India. You have said that the trade with the bordering nations is very useful.
Yeah.
So whose decision was this? Was it advantageous to Pakistan, and still because we could not, remove this thing again? So it was this advantageous to Pakistan in any way?
I think shortly before that decision, India had also slapped 200% duties on many of the things coming into India from Pakistan. So ground was already there, और जब ये वाकया हुआ तो पाकिस्तान ने ये रिएक्शन ली. But मेरा personal view, no, trade should never be stopped. आपको याद है कि गलवान वैली के वक्त जब 2020 में हुआ तो उस वक्त इंडिया में calls were made that we should reduce trade with China, but in fact trade actually grew. So I think I personally feel that trade should be decoupled from conflict. Conflict पे आपकी अपनी position है और आप रखें अपनी position और उसको voice भी करें जो आपका. And I think the Chinese have shown that you need to take long-term views on the principles and the positions that you want to. उन्होंने देखे ना हांगकांग का कितना इंतजार किया. Now they are waiting for Taiwan. तो आप कश्मीर पे अपनी position give up ना करें. But I think trade and economic relations with all neighbors, including India, will serve the people of Pakistan. Why should we give that up? This is my personal view, and I think trade in any circumstances should have continued. No, I was not in the foreign ministry, but at that time. But I believe it was a collective decision of the leadership at that time that we don't, it was a signal they wanted to send to the Kashmiris that you are so important to us that we are sacrificing even our commercial interests. So that was the reason. But the problem is that Modi government has moved on to a totally new agenda in which they are moving from continental space to maritime space. So वो कहते हैं कि इधर ऊपर हमारे पास चाइना के साथ हमारा रास्ता कोई नहीं है, इधर से पाकिस्तान अफगानिस्तान है, उधर म्यांमार है, तो ये continental space से वो पूरा का maritime. So now the entire focus is on Indo-Pacific strategy as well as building up India's prowess in the maritime domain. तो इसकी भी वजह बन गई है. तो इसलिए अब उनको उस तरह जरूरत भी नहीं है पाकिस्तान की ट्रेड की या उस राउट की. They are not looking for it. और हमारे लिए भी ये इम्पोर्टेंट है कि हम मैरीटाइम स्पेस को जरा ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस दें apart from normalizing ties with the neighbors.
So since there are no more questions, let me ask a very simple question, but I think we need all of you to reflect. आपका तो बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है, आप लोगों ने बहुत स्टडी किया है. फॉरेन पॉलिसी या कोई पॉलिसी बाकी मुल्कों में कैसे बनती है? अमेरिका, इंडिया, हमारे यहाँ कैसे बनती है? Is it different? Are we all following the same? I'm talking procedure and the contribution of think tanks. हमारे यहाँ कोई difference है या are we operating the same way as other countries?
Sir, my experience is that theory is the same. सब जगह foreign policy उनके foreign office नहीं बनाते. It is based on the inputs that they receive from all departments, including, in fact, one of the courses I took in Fletcher was making of US foreign policy. और वो पेंटागन भी देता है इनपुट, CIA also provides, ट्रेजरी भी देती है, कॉमर्स भी देती है, एंड द नेशनल सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल puts up the recommendations to the chief executive, वो फैसला कर लेते हैं, then everybody implement. Of course, that's where State Department comes in to collate and then to finally implement. And theory वही है पाकिस्तान के फॉरेन ऑफिस को भी. लेकिन हम करते सिर्फ ये हैं कि हमने फर्स्ट टाइम यूएस में ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. यूएस में तो आपको पता है ना कि एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जाती है तो उसके सारे लोग थिंक टैंक्स में आ जाते हैं, 100 और 100 थिंक टैंक्स इन डीसी. आप तो रहे हैं वहां पे इतना अरसा सर. और फिर उसके बाद जब नई गवर्नमेंट आती है तो यही लोग नए आइडियाज के साथ उसमें शामिल हो जाते हैं. पाकिस्तान में ऐसा नहीं था. सो इट्स ए न्यू ट्रेंड इन पाकिस्तान के ये भी हो सकता है कि आप एकेडेमिया से, थिंक टैंक से, दूसरी जगहों से लोगों से व्यूज लें. हम जरा इस मामले में गवर्नमेंट्स हमारी जो ना साइलोस में रहना पसंद करती है. क्लासिक एग्जांपल इज कि जब हमने FTA 1 2006 में किया तो there was not enough consultation done with the traders and the industrialists कि इंजरी कितनी आएगी. और हमने जाके ठग से कर दिया एज इफ इट्स जस्ट अ मैटर ऑफ साइनिंग सर्टेन पेपर्स। तो अब पीपल आर नाउ रियलाइजिंग गवर्नमेंट के नॉन गवर्नमेंटल सेक्टर्स जो हैं दे कैन प्रोवाइड मच मोर वैल्यूएबल इनपुट्स। तो प्रोसेस वही है सर, सारी दुनिया में वही प्रोसेस है, कहीं पे भी फॉरेन पॉलिसी इवन इंडिया की MBA नहीं बनाती है। It's always the chief executive based on the inputs collated by the foreign office, and I think वही theory हमारे भी है, and that's where I think sir it's not practice ना, क्योंकि होता ये है कि हमारे यहाँ
बिल्कुल है, बट हमारे यहाँ फॉर एग्जांपल मैं आपको छोटी सी बात बताऊं, जब 2010 का फ्लड आया तो फॉरेन ऑफिस ने अनाउंस कर दिया, मैं प्लानिंग कमीशन था, फॉरेन ऑफिस ने अनाउंस कर दिया कि जी 40 बिलियन का नुकसान हुआ। हम हैरान थे, हफीज जो आज प्राइम मिनिस्टर आ जाएगा, हम सारे हैरान थे कि 40 बिलियन कहाँ से आया। तो फॉरेन ऑफिस से पूछा, उन्होंने कहा जी हमने तो बना दिया। इसी तरह आप लोग रन कर रहे थे एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कॉल्ड फ्रेंड्स ऑफ पाकिस्तान या क्या, वो अपने आप चल रही नहीं, अभी तक चल रही है, अभी तक चल रही है, अभी तक। तो दे मेक इकोनॉमिक डिसीजन जो हमें पता भी नहीं चलता, और यू नो, सो आई डोंट थिंक कि कंसल्टेशन होती है।
नहीं सर, फॉरेन ऑफिस ऑन इट्स ओन तो उसके पास मैकेनिज्म नहीं है कि वो फिगर ले, कहीं नेशनल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट या कहीं से आया होगा। और ये फ्रेंड्स ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक पाकिस्तान से तो मैं अटैच था, इसमें मैंने उसकी सारी तफसील भी लिखी हुई है, और उसमें साफ जाहिर हो गया था कि हमारी अपनी गवर्नमेंट जो इकोनॉमिक मिनिस्ट्रीज और गवर्नमेंट की कैपेसिटीज कितनी कम है, कंसल्टेंट्स पे हमारी सारी रिलायंस थी। अब इस वजह से ये भी एक आपको सबक सीखना है कि आपको इन हाउस कैपेबिलिटी बनानी है आपको, और उसके लिए अगर ये मुकीद कहता है कि हमें जाना चाहिए, बिल्कुल जाना चाहिए, पढ़े लिखें, और कोर्सेज तो करने जाते हैं लेकिन जॉय राइड के तौर पर जाते हैं। हमारे पास वो जो प्रोसेस आप कह रहे हैं, फैसले किस तरह होते हैं, फैसले इस तरह होते हैं कि जिस तरह जनरल मुशर्रफ को कहा 9/11 के बाद कि जनाब आप हमारे एलाए हैं, उन्होंने कहा जी बिल्कुल एलाए हैं। दैट्स ए रॉन्ग वे टू टेक डिसीजन, बट देयर आर राइट वेज। यमन का क्राइसिस हुआ तो उस वक्त सऊदी अरेबिया ने कहा कि आप सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स में हमारे साथ आए, हमारा मामला चला गया पार्लियामेंट में, पार्लियामेंट ने कहा कि आप न्यूट्रल हो जाएं, हम न्यूट्रल हो गए, और उन्होंने बड़ी खफगी हुई वहां पे, लेकिन 2-4 साल खफगी के बाद वो ठीक हो गए। क्यों ठीक हो गए? पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान वर बिहाइंड दैट डिसीजन। दैट्स व्हाई आई हैव ऑलवेज प्लीडेड विद माय कोलीग्स कि आप कैरी द पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान, उसकी ओनरशिप जो है ना वो सही ओनरशिप होगी। ये जो आप इंडिविजुअली फैसले करते हैं, चाहे एक मिनिस्ट्री करे, चाहे प्राइम मिनिस्टर या चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव करे, वो हमारे लिए ठीक नहीं रहते।
Khalid sir, is there any, sorry, मैं आपका साथ हूँ, Khalid sir, is there any interministerial coordination in our government?
बिल्कुल जी, वो तो actually you read my mind. There is a regular mechanism, and actually, I mean, I don't want to go into this turf thing. Like in foreign ministry on its own, this has been my experience, and I'm sure Aizaz would also second me. We try our best to coordinate with other ministries, but there is a disconnect in the system. There's lack of synergy, lack of coordination. ये तो है, ये structural problems हैं हमारी, ये आ जाती हैं सामने, वो आती हैं। आप डिप्टी चेयरमैन प्लानिंग कमीशन रहे हैं, मतलब आई एम नॉट गिविंग यू एनी न्यू इंफॉर्मेशन, यू नो हाउ स्टेट अपरेटस वर्क्स। और जो आपने फॉरेन पॉलिसी की बात की, बिल्कुल सही एजाज ने बताया कि थियरी यही है, प्रैक्टिस में भी यही होता है, इनपुट सबसे आती है, बट फॉरेन ऑफिस देखिए, मैं आपने इंटरमिनिस्ट्रियल मैकेनिज्म की बात की, अब मैं आपको इसको थोड़ा सा रिलेट कर देता हूँ। एक विजिट होना है हेड ऑफ स्टेट का या हेड ऑफ गवर्नमेंट का, किसी यूएसए का होना है, चाइना का होना है, तो अब उसमें मतलब चाइना को ले लें आप, उसमें आपकी कोऑपरेशन जो वो मल्टी डोमेन है चाइना के साथ, ठीक है। सो व्हाट द फॉरेन मिनिस्ट्री डज, दिस इन द प्रिपरेटरी प्रोसेस, वी डू इंटरमिनिस्ट्रियल मीटिंग्स and at a higher level that used to be at the secretary level at one point in time. I don't know अब क्या होता है, लेकिन आते हैं सारे, फिर हम उनसे पूछते हैं कि जी अच्छा आपके साइंस में जरा बताएं कि जो उसके बाद अब क्या हो रहा है, स्टेटस क्या है, इसी तरह दूसरी। उसके बाद फॉरेन मिनिस्ट्री जो है उसको कल आउट करती है, उसको फिल्टर करती है सारी इंफॉर्मेशन को, एंड द मिनिस्ट्रीज आर ऑल्सो टास्क्ड that since the prime minister's visit is taking place and this thing will come up, our host will, maybe there will be some agreement or something. So आप इसके ऊपर तैयारी कर लें और उसके बाद हमें input दें. Then on the basis of that, foreign office prepares notes or whatever summary or whatever recommendations to the prime minister कि जी हमने interministerial meeting की थी, ये synthesis निकला है, ये चीजें हो रही. फिर then that is up to the prime minister's office कि वो किसको क्या task करते हैं, कि आप slow हैं, आपने काम नहीं किया. ये mechanism established है. लेकिन उसमें हमारा जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो ये कि मिनिस्ट्रीज काफी लेट डाउन करती हैं, और जब तक उनको पुश ना किया जाए वो चलती नहीं है. बाकी मैं एक बात ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जी अगर आपने पाकिस्तान को आगे लेके जाना है, अभी तक तो वी आर ऑल फ्रॉम द सिविल सर्विस, वो बैठे हुए शबकत साहब भी, हमारा ट्रेडिशनल जो मॉड्यूल है वो यही है कि जी आपने CSS कर लिया है, उसके बाद आपने यू आर हेडिंग द मिनिस्ट्रीज एंड देन यू आर रनिंग द प्लानिंग मिनिस्ट्री एंड यू आर रनिंग द एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री एंड हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री. You don't know any damn thing about education. You don't know anything about agriculture, but you are head of that ministry. Okay, if you can't change that system, and there have been commissions and recommendation of them, you bring in researchers, academics of repute in the process. It has to be a hybrid. देखिए मैं आपको बताता हूँ, चाइना में मिनिस्ट्रीज जो हेड कर रहे हैं वो उनके प्रैक्टिकली टेक्नोक्रेट्स कर रहे हैं, एंड दे आर PhDs. आप जाएंगे वाइस मिनिस्टर ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, उसने PhD की होगी तो चाइना से की होगी, पीकिंग से या चिंगवा से, अब कर रहा हूं. Why? They also have their cadre of civil services, but they assign this because they are the specialist. वो आपको वो नेशनल प्लानिंग प्रोसेस को आगे लेके चलते हैं. हमारा तो वो सिस्टम ही नहीं है. तो जब तक ये चीजें हम नहीं करेंगे, ये चेंजेस नहीं लाएंगे, we will move in circles.
Thank you. Dr. Nadeem, I'll not talk about the book because my colleague Amina and Ambassador Masood has already talked in detail about Ambassador Aizaz's book. But what I want to say is, I think it's, I appreciate Dr. Nadeem ki aapne is book ko is particular platform se aap launch kiya, because it's important. Because jab hum geopolitical economy ya geopolitical jo dynamics chal rahi hai uski baat karte hain, I think it's important for the students of economics also to learn, because हम economics को बहुत silos में बैठ के पढ़े होते हैं, क्यों ये decisions नहीं हो रहे होते हैं, why the decision making processes are failed. Because हम economics, because I'm a student of economics also, तो हम geopolitical situation क्या चल रही है, what is going on internally, externally, they need to understand. The students of economics also need to understand this. So I think this book is very important, not only for the students of IR or strategic issues se jo linked hai, but particularly I would recommend this book for the students of economics jo aapke platform pe baithe hue hain. This is worth reading book in order to read what had happened and what lies in future for us, and how जो एम्बेसडर एजाज ने बात की कि हमारा जो ओवरऑल जो गवर्नेंस का स्ट्रक्चर है, व्हाई इट इज फ्रैक्चर्ड, और हमें क्या करना है, कैसे डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेसेस को बेहतर करना है. आई थिंक इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट कि हम इस इंटरलिंकेजेस या जो कनेक्टिविटी है बिटवीन एकेडेमिया एंड थिंक टैंक्स जो आप ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं, it needs to be enhanced more, and I think I appreciate you for this. Thank you.
I fully endorse what Neelam has said, and I think thank you very much, Nadeem Sahab. You are a very progressive man and always coming out with open to ideas. And thank you for introducing a new perspective to PIDE.
Thank you, sir. So ये मैंने पूछना था कि though it's no comparison, just thinking कि China और USA वो decouple से de-risk पे आ गए हैं मैनेज करने के लिए अपने रिलेशनशिप को, तो हम इस किस्म का मॉडल इंडिया के साथ नहीं कर सकते.
ना सिर्फ कर सकते हैं, हमें करना चाहिए, ये डूएबल, बट उसमें अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत ज्यादा. लाहौर प्रोसेस वाज द मोस्ट आइडियल टाइम. न्यूक्लियराइजेशन हो गई थी, दोनों की पैरिटी एस्टेब्लिश हो गई थी, वाजपेयी साहब मीनारे पाकिस्तान चले गए थे, उन लोगों के लिए भी ये था कि भाई ये जो नहीं मानते हैं, तो आई थिंक हमने वेस्ट की वो अपॉर्चुनिटी. I personally feel. और उसके बाद भी अपॉर्चुनिटीज आई, 2015 की भी अपॉर्चुनिटीज आई थी और वो बड़ा अच्छा था, हम चल पड़ा था. तो हमें करना होगा सर अल्टीमेटली, लेकिन अब मुश्किल हो गया. इस वक्त मुश्किल इसलिए हो गया क्योंकि मोदी सरकार किसी और रास्ते पे चल निकली है. वो तो एक हिंदू रियासत बना रहे हैं जिसके अंदर मुसलमानों की जगह ही कोई नहीं है. और ये सिर्फ हम नहीं कह रहे हैं, ये पूरी दुनिया अब उनको बार बार कह रही है. प्रेसिडेंट ओबामा ने तो उनको ये कहा कि अगर आपने ये रास्ता ना बदला तो इंडिया टूट जाएगा, जिसपे वो बड़े खफा हुए. इट वॉज ऑन द ईव ऑफ हिज विजिट to the US. तो वो indirect messaging थी from the United States. Indirect इसलिए क्योंकि प्रेसिडेंट ओबामा इज नो ऑर्डिनरी मैन. तो मेरा ये ख्याल है कि हिंदुस्तान इस वक्त जिस रास्ते पे चल निकला है, इस वक्त हम उस जगरनॉट को रोक नहीं सकते. उनके अपने अंदर कमोशन और तलातुम आने का बहुत ज्यादा चांस है, और आई होप दे चेंज देयर ट्रैक, बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट हाउ दे शुड लिव विद नेबर्स. सेकंड, उन्होंने ये जो अपने आप को एक रीजनल हेजमॉन और पुलिसमैन एंड नेट सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइडर और इस किस्म के जो रोल एज्यूम कर रहे हैं, वो उसकी मौजूदगी में भी अगर पाकिस्तान कोई भी लेगा, आपने जितने यूनिलेटरल देखे हैं, आपने करतारपुर किया, ये जो भी किया, वो रेसिप्रोकेट नहीं हुए, जबकि एक जमाने में वो हमारे मतलब कहते थे हमें कि आप ये कर दे हमें, लेकिन अल्टीमेट डायरेक्शन वही, पीसफुल कोएग्जिस्टेंस, कोऑपरेटिव फ्रेंडली रिलेशंस बिटवीन द टू नेबर्स। लेकिन चले इंडिया तो छोड़े ना, आप इस वक्त अफगानिस्तान के साथ तो कर लेना, वहां तो थी ना, आप जाए ना चमन बॉर्डर पे और जाके तोरखम पे और गुलाम मोहम्मद खान पे, आपको समझ आ जाएगी। हमें खुद इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज को प्रायोरिटी देनी पड़ेगी। ये जो ट्रेडर्स जो ट्रेड कर रहे हैं, ये हमारे वीआईपीज हैं, दे आर ब्रिंगिंग जॉब्स, दे आर ब्रिंगिंग फॉरेन एक्सचेंज फॉर अस। तो हमें तो अपना जाविया बदलना होगा, एंड दैट्स व्हाई आई एम फर्स्ट पर्सन, आई एम फर्स्ट अमंग मेनी हु आर सेइंग कि जी आप अपनी ओरिएंटेशन इवन फॉरेन पॉलिसी की भी चेंज करें और सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट को परसू करें। वो हैं तो एवरीथिंग इज डन, अगर नहीं है तो नहीं है। थैंक यू।
Will you reflect on the state of foreign policy and the decision making from a think tank point of view? And ISSI is a very important think tank, military foreign policy. आपका क्या contribution है foreign policy?
Dekhiye, again, I'm going to sound biased, but before Ambassador Chaudhry, honestly, we had hardly any interaction with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's very unfortunate, but when I think
आपके सारे ambassadors बैठे होते हैं as chairman नहीं?
जी,
अशरफ काजी भी था, वो भी था, शमशाद साहब भी थे।
For good 20 years after its existence, there was nobody who came from Pakistan.
that was in the past, Haji.
कौन थे जी? ये इनाम उल हक भी थे वहाँ।
He was the chairman.
Chairman की बात।
Chairman, yes. But executive head to sir.
Is Director General.
अच्छा, okay.
But I think because Ambassador Aizaz served as the Foreign Secretary and he did interact with us, he brought about the synergy. And I can tell you that in the previous administration, we had regular meetings with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and he would take our input. And another thing, I think it also depends upon leadership. You know, you have to take the initiative. Maybe they don't want inputs from us, but I remember under Ambassador Aizaz, we would prepare these briefs called confidential briefs on important areas, and Afghanistan is an area that I'm closely associated with. And I remember we, sent many confidential briefs to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Whether they listen or not is a different, ball game altogether, but we did provide inputs.
You think of the foreign policy making process?
Our inputs and how it affects that? Overall?
Overall, is a foreign policy made? You know what I think, for example, I'll talk about economics. Our economic decisions are made absolutely no thought, no coordination. Finance does its own job, planning does its own job, other people do their own job. In fact, every ministry wants to do its own economic thing. For example, the way the PC1 process is broken, every ministry wants to have their own project. Every politician wants to have their project. So quite frankly, our economic policy, A, does not exist. Projects exist, they're totally fragmented. ECC, शायद सब भी बैठते रहे, उसमें बताइए जी ECC क्या था? सिर्फ एक तमाशा था पैसे देने का. तो क्या foreign policy different?
I think, all I'll say is that I think there has to be ownership, and I've seen that I don't think the ministry has the ownership when it comes to foreign policy. I'm sorry. This is my,
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much. Aizaz sir, very grateful. Masood sir, very grateful. Amina sir, we be very grateful. Thank you, Ji. And please regard PIDE as your own home. We are ready to welcome you at any time. Come and write here. Come and work with our students. It's always an open invitation to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Sir.
you.
Thank you. God bless you.